Meanwhile, authorities in Mozambique say a natural gas project being developed by oil giant Total in the country's northern region is beyond the reach of insurgents. They say dozens of people were killed in the assault that began in the coastal town of Palma last week. Gas projects worth billions of dollars are being developed in the town of Palma. The projects are meant to transform Mozambique's economy. Authorities say the situation around Palma remains highly volatile, with insurgents staging attacks on two security posts yesterday. Aid groups believe the deadly attacks displaced tens of thousands of people, many of whom fled into dense forests seeking refuge. One of those who fled to the bushes is Imamo Saide. Saide arrived in the port of Pemba yesterday on a boat carrying 1,200 survivors. Holding his baby in his arms, Saide said the insurgents were wearing Mozambique army uniforms and were armed.
I don't know how many they were. The ones I saw were wearing Mozambique army uniforms with red handkerchiefs and they had guns. They were speaking their language. They said, "Where are you guys running to? We don't want you. We want your troops."
More than 1,000 survivors from Palma in northern Mozambique have safely reached the port of Pemba by boat. The town was under attack last week by insurgents, with dozens killed and some even beheaded. Aid workers have been at the crowded port in capital of Cabo Delgado province to give food to the displaced people. More on the situation on the ground in Pemba, the capital of Mozambique's northern province of Cabo Delgado. We're joined now by Shelley Thakral, who's spokesperson of the UN World Food Programme in Pemba. Very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much.
So just give us firstly a sense of what has been happening thus far and the conditions under which you are attempting to do this aid work.
Thank you very much. Yeah, indeed. And it's first of all, we've been monitoring this since 24th of March, every minute, every day, and the sort of the harrowing testimonies that we're hearing about how people have fled with very, very little. And we've been operating, we have the United Nations Humanitarian Air Service, which has been evacuating, we've evacuated 380 people. 76% of them are women and children, the most vulnerable. And we've also made sure that we can get doctors to the affected areas. So we're expecting that we need to look after, more than 50,000 people. This is a region that has been sort of hammered with conflict for many years. We're already seeing, the highest rates of chronic malnutrition. So our first and most important priority is to make sure that
Shelley,
we get.
I want to talk about it, exactly that, what you're saying, that it's a situation that's been ongoing for years now, and I think a lot of the focus has been almost that this has just happened. I believe the United Nations says some 40,000 people are internally displaced, but is that just for this period, or have you been able to rack up figures of just how bad the situation is? Because I am aware that there's some child-headed households, many of them, and a lot of them just basically get one meal almost in a week.
And this is, this is the absolute dire situation. I mean, we are calling it a humanitarian catastrophe, and for the very reason that, as you mentioned, in your report as well, we heard from people who have fled, people who've been on a boat for the last 24 hours or, have had to take that long journey. And, they even as far back as last October, we were hearing stories of people who were drinking river water or just trying to eat whatever they could, scavenge around them. So the World Food Programme here at this point, we have emergency rations, and that's rice, that's pulse, that's oil, that's lentils, that's beans. That will last a family of 5 at least 2 weeks. And there are also high energy biscuits as well that are essential, in these times of emergencies and crisis.
Just the population of Palma and the percentage of those who've managed to flee, who have arrived in Pemba. What is your migration agency tracker telling you?
So what we do know is that there are accommodation centres that the government has set up, and very effectively so. We were at one yesterday, and we heard stories from one gentleman who basically talked about having to hide for 3 days in the bush, no food, no water, as he just could hear gunshots in the distance. So there are people that have arrived at the accommodation centre and that are being looked after by our other agencies, UNICEF, for water sanitation and child protection, UNFPA, UNHCR. But we also know that some of the families will also go straight to families and relatives. They will go, they will seek refuge with families, and that's that's very normal. That families are very that will welcome those that are most distressed into their homes. And I know that last December we visited some parts of Cabo Delgado where families were as extended as 30, 40 members of the family. They'd sort of just grown from a 10-member household.
There are those who are fortunate enough to still have a family. What about those that don't? Are there camps, and are there secure camps that the UN has been or can be able to set up?
And that's why we work so collaboratively with other agencies and also with the government of Mozambique. There is obviously, the World Food Programme will do everything that we can to provide food assistance. We estimate that there are 950,000 people in Cabo Delgado that are food insecure. Other agencies like UNHCR will also be looking to provide shelter as well in terms of their state.
But of course, the impact of the instability, the insurgency has been greater, and I'm wondering what happens even when there is peace that is achieved. Are we going to have a generation of children who not only suffer from stunting, but school is a dream, obviously, that seems far off because many of them have not been able to attend school for a very long time?
That's right, and also compounded by the restrictions of COVID and lockdown. We are not just in this area, but in other parts of the country, and it's critical that we work together with the government, which we do, and on long-term projects as well, to make sure that this very reason that we don't forget that children need a childhood, and that families need to. Nobody should go to bed hungry. Nobody should. We're going into the Holy Weekend, as you mentioned. It's absolutely critical to remember that we need to address this issue of making sure that we can provide food, health, access to health, for those who most need it.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Shelley Thakral, who's a spokesperson of the UN World Food Programme in Pemba. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll look at the security situation and find out how not only the AU is coordinating it, but South Africa's bid by its own military defence force to rescue its citizens from Mozambique.